Now, while it's awesome to sketch a scene and be able to capture what you see, there's something even more fulfilling about being able to not only sketch what you see, but to creatively direct the viewer's attention to a specific area of that scene. This enables you to use your sketches to creatively express yourself, to say something, to go beyond just being a recorder and actively choosing to filter information. And plus it's a fun way to really challenge yourself to choose what matters to you most and to visually convey that in your sketch. The first thing is to take some time to look at the scene and determine if or where will be your focal point in that sketch. So it can be anything you deem to be visually appealing or that draws your interest. So it could be a single item like a rock or a vase or a plant or a tree or a sign or a person, a vehicle, a group of people or objects. It could be an entire area of that scene. It doesn't have to be a particular thing. So understand that a focal point or focal area could be something that appeals to you that you would like to direct your creative energy to and bring that out in the sketch. Now, after deciding on the focal area of your scene, next thing is to determine how you will convey this to the viewer. Now, other than choosing a unique subject matter, that naturally stands out, like it may be the only person in the scene, perhaps the easiest way is to frame the scene in such a way so that the focal area will naturally be the center of attention. A popular way of creating emphasis is using contrast. There's a variety of ways to use contrast to create emphasis. For example, you could use contrast in shapes, in details, so that the area of focus has a lot of attention, a lot of details, a lot of movement, a lot of action, and where other areas of the composition, there's barely anything going on. That type of contrast will easily drive your viewer's eyes to wherever that action is. And another common way of creating contrast is by using values. So if you're using value contrast, then you would ensure that the deepest and lightest values are juxtaposed or placed right next to each other at that focal area. So the rest of the sketch would be dominated by midtones. So this way, where the deepest values are will clash right against the lightest values, and this will be the place that your viewer's eyes will spend the most time. Now, it may be a bit challenging in the beginning to actually apply emphasis in your sketches, but in time you'll really grow to appreciate it and understand that it enables you to take creative control of your art and use it as a form of creative expression. So you're not just this passive recorder, but now you become an active agent in your art and in the very scene that you're capturing. Now you're actually saying something about it. So I'll share a few tips on drawing some of the common elements you may find in urban sketching, like buildings and people and vehicles and trees and so on. So let's start with people. Now, oftentimes we shy away from sketching people because a human figure can be quite intimidating, and rightfully so. I mean, the figure is really one of the most complex forms that you could ever draw. However, the key is to draw them using simple shapes. Resist the urge to draw details or to slow down and be meticulous about getting everything right. Don't strive for exactness. Think again about what I'd mentioned before when breaking down a scene. Think circles, ovals, triangles, rectangles. Think basic, simple shapes and try to capture the pose of the torso first and then add the head and the appendages, the legs and the arms. Think torso first and then just add legs and arms and the head. And use simple shapes and you'll find that this will be a really fun experience. Trees are really fun. But of course, it's easy to be put off or be intimidated, just like with the human figure, by the overwhelming amount of details, especially in the leaves. All right. Now, the key is to ignore them. Well, at first, focus on the outline, the dominant silhouette, the overall shape, and sketch that first. Then try to sense the basic light and shadow position and a value pattern, and then just lightly suggest a shadow and some gestural marks or strokes, and that's about it. Keep it simple. Practice this kind of simplified way of approaching trees, and they will become one of your favorite subjects in urban sketching. Now, buildings are everywhere, right? The key to drawing a building is first proportion. Proportion is number one, and then the structure and the position. Now, think of where the building is positioned and establish its grounding first. Then start to mark off its limits. Where's the highest point, the widest point? Are there major divisions, and landmarks, or are the major doors or windows? Those are the types of things you have to think about before you actually start thinking about the bricks and the fine details. Think about the major aspects, the framework that holds it together. And then, can use dots as a way of marking those areas, those landmarks. And then it's just a matter of connecting the dots and putting it all together. The cool thing is the dots will serve in different purposes. One, they'll help you to establish the proportions and the structure. And then they will actually be guides themselves as you actually develop that drawing. You don't want your buildings to be leaning or toppling over. So to ensure that your buildings are seen in perspective and are consistent among each other, you have to make sure that you establish your horizon and establish where the vanishing points are. And then that will give you a sense of how to form the diagonal lines that will form the edges of those buildings. And then from there, you'll find that maintaining that consistency will be a lot easier. Doors, windows, roofs, fixtures, and so on, they don't need to be rendered in detail. And here I'll emphasize the importance again of appreciating the abstract, saying more with less, implying more, suggesting more, to convey, not necessarily to say. That's the important thing about, urban sketching. You want to have fun. It's just like a summary, writing summaries. You're abbreviating. You're trying to be concise. You're trying to be more expressive with what you say without spelling it out. And that's the thing about drawing these fixtures like windows. Try to minimize the amount of information that you provide while still conveying the essence of what that structure or that thing is.